£15,000 buys an entire historic terrace street in the United Kingdom right now. Not a single foreclosure. Not a scam. A 100% legal, outright purchase of 12 separate, deeded brick houses. And you are absolutely not supposed to know about it. The UK real estate industry desperately tries to hide why these 12 specific streets are sitting completely unwanted on local public auction blocks. One coastal row is literally sliding into the North Sea at 10 feet every single year into the water, while a majestic Victorian block has 0 floors left inside because an aggressive, protected bat colony has legally frozen the entire multi-million-pound development. Buying these won't make you a wealthy neighborhood tycoon. It triggers a brutal financial death trap of toxic heavy metal soil remediation and unmapped coal mine shafts that will drain your entire life savings in less than 36 months. Wealthy financial advisors know this risk, but everyday buyers don't. Hit subscribe right now before this hidden information spreads, because choosing the wrong street will permanently bankrupt your financial future. Trust me, you are not ready for number 1. Let's break it down. Number 12, Anson Terrace Estate. In Morecambe, you can buy a majestic, interlocking stone row of 14-grand Victorian townhouses for an absurd £320,000. Sitting right on the Lancashire coast, this massive estate row looks like a playground for wealthy property tycoons. On the surface, it's a historic architectural masterpiece, but it has completely broken the bank of 3 separate multimillionaires. Here's what you're working with. 14 massive historic homes for the price of a standard semi-detached house in Manchester, with a cost of living 14% below average. Sounds like a dream, right? But here's what nobody tells you. A massive underground culvert running directly beneath the center of the street is actively collapsing, creating a terrifying subterranean void that could swallow the Row Hole. Worse, ancient legal covenants bind the title, forcing you to pay for the upkeep of a nearby public park while you're legally blocked from renting the actual units. As an auction watcher on Reddit noted, this block has cycled through 4 auction houses in 2 years. Every single buyer backs out during legal discovery. And don't even get me started on the estate roads. The potholes here are so deep they have their own postcodes and ecosystems. Hey, at least Skegness's winter gales left the street intact. Picture this. A rainy evening, the smell of damp sea air, and the quiet panic of watching water vanish into a growing crack right in the middle of your private road. Number 11, Marine Parade Block. Right on the bustling seafront of Skegness, you can snap up an entire prominent block of 5 seaside holiday apartments for just £195,000. On the surface, this vibrant Lincolnshire resort looks like a lucrative vacation paradise, packed with neon lights, beachgoers, and high tourism footfall. It looks like the ultimate passive income goldmine. Here's the thing. A full oceanfront commercial block costs less than a basic studio flat in London, with local living costs 14% below average. Sounds like a dream, right? But here's what nobody tells you. Once summer ends, the area turns into an absolute ghost town with skyrocketing crime maps. Local police records reveal the specific strip suffers from severe, persistent antisocial behavior, vandalism, and seasonal break-ins that make insurance premiums completely unaffordable. As one local business owner on Reddit warned, you'll spend more money replacing smashed front windows and security shutters than you will ever collect in summer holiday rent. And don't get me started on the winter weather. The bitter North Sea gales stripped the paint right off the masonry. At least Cumbria's shifting slate quarry gave you some peace and quiet. Imagine this. A dark winter night, the smell of stale salt water, and the sound of an alarm blaring from your empty, vandalized storefront. Number 10. Woodside Quarry Cottages. Tucked away near the majestic Lake District, you can snap up this full row of 6 beautiful slate cottages for £165,000. On the surface, it's a tranquil, nature-lover's paradise surrounded by stunning peak views. It feels like the ultimate rustic countryside escape, right up until a mountain decides to move. Here's what you're working with. A whole row of scenic cottages for the price of a standard parking space in London, where living costs are 5% below average. Sounds like a dream, right? But here's what nobody tells you. The back wall of this terrace acts as a literal retaining wall for a 200-foot-deep abandoned slate quarry. Intense geological pressures slowly bound the walls inward, and constant rockfall hazards mean you have to maintain heavy-duty steel catch fencing at your own expense. As one local hiker on Reddit noted, you can hear the slate shifting behind the houses during a heavy frost. It sounds like glass cracking right behind your ears. Okay, can we talk about the Wi-Fi for a sec? The Deep Valley stone walls completely obliterate all cellular signals. Hey, at least in Blainavon you could get a text message while using the outhouse. Imagine this, a snowy winter night, the smell of wood smoke, and the terrifying sound of shifting slate cracking right outside your bedroom wall. Next, we head to a classic coastal strip that looks like a vacation paradise until you check the crime maps. Number 9. Blainavon Ironworks Row. You can buy an entire beautifully preserved street of 8 historic cottages in Torvine for £110,000. Located in a quiet Welsh valley, this stable community sits right inside a pristine UNESCO World Heritage Site. On the surface, it's an absolute dream for history buffs, but the red tape is completely suffocating. Here's what you're working with. A whole slice of British heritage for the price of a luxury SUV, where living costs are 20% below average. Sounds like a dream, right? But here's what nobody tells you. You are legally forbidden from living here. You can't install modern plumbing, internal bathrooms, or central heating because the government demands strict historical accuracy. It can only be operated as a non-profit museum. As one user on Reddit joked, buying this street means you officially become a low-paid janitor for the government's heritage department. Let's talk about the food options for a sec. The closest place to eat is a stale vending machine miles down a mountain track. Hey, at least in Blackburn you could get a pizza delivered while dodging the bats. Picture this, a crisp morning, the smell of clean mountain air, and the realization that you own 8 houses but still have to use an outhouse. Next, we move to a row in Cumbria that is actively being crushed by a mountain. Number 8. St. Mary's Church Terrace. In Blackburn, you can snap up a grand, looming block of 9 red brick Victorian townhouses for £210,000. This northern town of 150,000 residents is famous for its industrial history. On the surface, it looks like a majestic film set from a British period drama, but the interiors are a complete death trap. Here's the thing. An entire architectural estate costs less than a basic suburban semi-detached home, with a cost of living 25% below average. Sounds like a dream, right? But here's what nobody tells you. Dry rot has completely destroyed the internal joists, meaning the floors literally collapsed into the basements years ago. Stepping inside without a safety harness is suicidal. Furthermore, it sits in a severe flood zone, and a massive colony of protected bats has nested in the rafters, making any construction legally impossible. As a structural engineer on Reddit shared, framing these from scratch while saving the outer shell is an absolute multi-million-pound money pit. And don't even get me started on the drivers. The empty street is used as a midnight drag strip by local boy racers. At least Butte's remote island road gave you peace and quiet. Imagine this, a chilly midnight, the smell of ancient rotting timber, and the sound of hundreds of bats screeching behind a beautiful brick facade. Next, we are headed to a stunning Welsh row where it is legally forbidden to install an indoor toilet. Number 7. Pier Head Row. On the stunning Isle of Bute, you can buy an entire postcard-perfect seaside terrace of 5 properties for £95,000. On the surface, the Scottish island escape looks like a tranquil, oceanfront paradise with a cozy community of 6,000 people. It feels like the ultimate slow-paced dream life. Here's what you're working with. A full coastal row for the price of a mid-tier family car, where your dollar, or rather, pound, buys breathtaking maritime views. Sounds like a dream, right? But here's what nobody tells you. Getting building materials here requires a 45-minute ferry that completely shuts down during bad weather. Contractors charge triple rates because of the island premium, and extreme salt spray has severely corroded the masonry window lintels. As a thread on Reddit notes, if your roof leaks in November, you won't see a tradesman until the ferry routes settle down in late April. Let's talk about the local store for a sec. The single grocery shop closes at 4 p.m. and runs out of fresh milk by Tuesday noon. Hey, at least in Stoke you could walk to a supermarket without a boat captain. Picture this, a peaceful sunset, the crisp smell of salty sea air, and the realization that you're totally stranded with a broken heater. Next, we head back to the mainland for a grand Victorian row that is completely hollow inside. Like this video so I can finally afford a house with actual internal joists. Subscribe right now, or you're stuck dealing with traditional mortgages and miserable property bidding wars forever. Number 6. Potteries Lane. You can own a stunning piece of industrial history consisting of 7 worker cottages right next to a peaceful canal for £140,000. Located in Stoke-on-Trent, this stable Midlands town is famous for its pottery heritage. On the surface, it looks like a charming, rustic canal-side retreat, but the dirt beneath your feet is actively hostile. Here's the thing. An entire historic lane costs less than a basic suburban garage elsewhere, with living costs 18% below average. Sounds like a dream, right? But here's what nobody tells you. The land is heavily contaminated with toxic lead and cadmium residue from 19th century kilns. Environmental mandates require massive, deep soil remediation before anyone can legally live here, and a canal wall needs an immediate £80,000 structural repair. As one investor on Reddit calculated, clearing the heavy metal pollution would wipe out any rental yield for the next 45 years. And don't even get me started on the bugs. The stagnant canal creates a breeding ground for hyper-aggressive midges all summer. Hey, at least Glasgow's toxic asbestos stayed inside the walls. Picture this. A romantic summer evening, the smell of historic brickwork, and a swarm of bugs biting you while you stare at a toxic lawn you can't legally touch. Next, we are heading to a remote Scottish island where the local logistics are an absolute nightmare. Number 5. Chatsworth Tenement Row. In Glasgow East, you can buy a beautiful historic red sandstone block for £120,000, but it comes wrapped in actual biohazard tape. The surrounding city is booming, but this specific pocket feels like a forgotten zone. On the surface, it's grand Scottish architecture. In reality, it's a condemned shell. Here's what you're working with. A massive structural block for the price of a luxury watch, sitting in an area with living costs 8% below average. Sounds like a dream, right? But here's what nobody tells you. The interiors are packed with lethal, industrial-grade blue asbestos. Structural settling has caused the entire front facade to lean outward over the pavement, and a ruptured water main has created a permanent underground swamp. As one former tenant on Reddit noted, we evacuated so fast that calendars on the walls are still turned to March 2012. Okay, can we talk about the local stores? Every shop within walking distance is permanently shuttered with heavy steel. At least Simmersoggy Valley's had fresh air. Picture this. A chilly evening, the smell of old damp stonework, and the unsettling hum of CCTV cameras watching a row of frozen apartments. Next, we head to a stunning canal lane with a toxic secret hidden in the soil. Number 4. Simmer. Nestled deep in the breathtaking Welsh valleys, you can buy an entire row of 10 stone cottages for £75,000. No joke. On the surface, it's a postcard-perfect slice of green, misty paradise with a stable population of 2,700. It feels like the ultimate off-grid fantasy. Here's what you're working with. A whole street costs less than a single mid-range family SUV, with a cost of living 22% below the national average. Sounds like a dream, right? But here's what nobody tells you. The entire row shares one single, archaic septic tank from the 1970s. Severe Japanese knotweed is actively cracking the stone foundations, and the access lane is completely unadopted, meaning the council will never fix the massive craters. As one local posted, the damp in these valleys isn't cosmetic, it's a living ecosystem that eats drywall for breakfast. And don't even get me started on the weather. It rains roughly 300 days a year here, so your walls stay permanently soggy. At least Bolton's empty shops had roofs. Picture this. A peaceful morning, the smell of fresh mountain rain, and a distinct sound of water rushing down the unpaved road like a river. Next, we head to Glasgow for a beautiful block covered in biohazard tape. Number 3. Bradshaw Gate. In Bolton, you can grab an entire grand town centre pedestrian commercial block for £450,000 and still afford a lifetime supply of survival rations. Located in Greater Manchester, this urban row has seen zero retail life since the late 90s. The vibe is aggressively nostalgic, like walking into an abandoned mall. Here's what you're working with. A sprawling retail terrace for the price of a tiny London flat, with living costs 12% below average. Sounds like a dream, right? But But here's what nobody tells you. These buildings are Grade 2 listed. Translation: you can't even change a rotted window pane without a mountain of government paperwork. Meanwhile, empty business rates will actively bleed your bank account dry. As one Redditor put it, the upper levels still contain unsold inventory from a clothing shop that went bust during the dot-com crash. Let's talk about parking for a sec. It is non-existent, and traffic wardens hover like absolute vultures. Hey, at least in Skipsea you could park on the edge of a cliff. Imagine this: a rainy afternoon, the smell of damp concrete, and the eerie silence of dark shopfronts frozen in 1999. Next, we are heading to the rugged valleys of Wales for an ancient geological curse. Number 2. Skipsea. You can buy a stunning beachside terrace here for £40,000, assuming you don't mind your front porch having a literal expiration date. Perched precariously on the East Yorkshire coast, this vanishing village has under 600 residents left. On the surface, it's a breathtaking seaside escape, but reality is actively crumbling. Here's what you're working with. A whole block costs less than a cheap luxury car, and rent is effectively unrentable. Translation: your dollar goes incredibly far here, right up until the land gives up. But here's what nobody tells you. The coast is eroding at 4 meters a year, making it Europe's fastest fleeing cliffside. Banks laugh at mortgages, and you are legally forced to pay thousands out of pocket to demolish your own home before it plummets into the surf. As one local posted, the only thing moving faster than the local housing market is the actual outsliding into the North Sea. Remember Horden's ancient Wi-Fi? Skipsea says hold my tea, because the access road here literally ends midair over a 50-foot drop. Picture this: sunset, the smell of crisp salt air, and the terrifying sound of your back garden falling into the crashing waves. If you thought Skipsea's cliffhanger was intense, the next town center is ruined by pure bureaucratic madness. Subscribe, because this is the exact chaotic data auction houses hope you never uncover. Keeping yourself completely blind to these bizarre legal loopholes will easily cost you 10 years of hard-earned savings. Number 1. Horden. In this town, you can buy 12 entire brick houses for £180,000 and still have enough left over for therapy. Nestled in County Durham, this former mining hub has a shrinking population of 8,500. It looks historic, but the vibe is pure post-apocalyptic ghost town. Let's break it down. Individual homes cost £15,000, less than a used hatchback. Rent averages £350, and living costs are 34% below average. Sounds like a dream, right? But here's what nobody tells you. Crime is elevated because 30% of the row is heavily boarded up. You're fighting severe structural damp, flying freeholds, and unmapped mine shaft beneath your kitchen. As one Redditor put it, buying here means spending 10x a purchase price just to stop your living room from sinking. So, what's the real trade-off? You save massive stacks of cash, but you spend your nights triple-checking door locks. Okay, can we talk about the local Wi-Fi? It's so ancient that a single email takes 3 business days.